The night sky above Earth looked peaceful, filled with countless stars that had shone for ages. People on the ground did not know that behind that calm view, something dangerous was waiting. A fleet of alien ships, built over 100 years of training and planning, was moving toward Earth. Their mission was simple in their eyes. They wanted to invade Earth, conquer its people, and make the planet theirs. For the aliens, this invasion was not just a military plan. It was the final test of their pride. For generations, they had prepared for this day. Every soldier had trained since birth. Every commander had studied battle records and strategies from hundreds of other worlds. Their leaders told them that Earth would fall in less than a day. The humans, they believed, were weak, disorganized, and divided. The aliens thought of humans as a species that had survived by luck, not strength. The alien flagship stood at the center of the fleet. Inside its command chamber, Commander Roll watched the blue planet grow larger on the screen. He felt calm and confident. His people had practiced this invasion in simulations thousands of times. They had studied the shape of the human cities, their weapons, and their weak points. Roll was sure that nothing could surprise them. Yet, Earth was not as simple as they thought. Humans were far from perfect, but perfection was never their strength. Their true power came from their ability to survive against impossible odds. For thousands of years, humans had fought not only wars but also nature itself. They had survived storms, floods, fires, and plagues. They had learned to adapt to problems faster than most species could imagine. This was something the aliens did not fully understand. Far below, on the surface, people began to notice strange lights in the sky. At first, many thought it was just another meteor shower or a satellite passing overhead. But soon, the number of lights grew larger and brighter. They moved in patterns, too perfect to be natural. Governments quickly realized what was happening. Messages spread across cities and villages. Humanity was about to face something it had never faced before, and this time it was not from Earth. In a quiet town, a boy named Aaron stood outside with his grandfather. They looked at the strange lights together. Aaron felt a mix of fear and wonder. His grandfather, who had lived through many wars, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Remember this. Humans always stand when it matters most." Aaron did not fully understand, but the words stayed in his mind. In the capital cities of the world, leaders connected with each other. There was no time for long debates. They had to act fast. Instead of blaming or fighting, they decided to work together. Satellites were redirected, defense systems powered up, and every country prepared for what was coming. For the first time in history, the entire world was looking at the same threat. The alien fleet entered the atmosphere with thunder and light. Their ships cut across the sky like falling stars, leaving trails of fire behind them. People ran to shelters, others gathered to watch, and many prepared to defend. The aliens expected fear and panic, but what they saw was something different. Humanity was afraid, yes, but fear had always been part of their history. They knew how to carry it and still fight. As the first alien dropships began to descend, Earth's defense forces locked onto them. Fighter jets rose into the sky, anti-air systems tracked their targets, and ground troops took their positions. Scientists and engineers quickly joined in, finding ways to jam signals and disrupt alien technology. Civilians also moved to help, some organizing supplies, some preparing shelters, and others ready to resist in any way they could. From orbit, Commander Roll watched this strange reaction. He had expected humans to scatter, to run without order. Instead, they were standing together. Even the smallest towns were preparing. He frowned but quickly dismissed his doubt. To him, it was only a matter of time before discipline and training crushed chaos. But what Roll did not know was that humans were not fighting with chaos. They were fighting with something stronger. They were fighting with creativity, unity, and the simple will to live. The sky burned brighter as more ships entered. The invasion had begun. Earth, a world the aliens thought would fall in one day, was about to teach them a lesson they could never have imagined. The alien ships cut through the clouds like blades of fire. Their dark metallic surfaces reflected the glow of Earth's sun as they descended in perfect formation. The people on the ground could feel the air vibrating with their arrival. Windows rattled, car alarms blared, and animals howled in fear. Humanity had seen science fiction movies before, but this was no movie. This was real, and it was happening now. Commander Roll stood at the front of his command chamber, his eyes locked on the surface of Earth. His fleet had begun to spread across the sky, each ship moving with mathematical precision. Soldiers inside the alien carriers checked their weapons and armor. They had trained for this moment all their lives. Not one of them expected defeat. On Earth, however, humans were not frozen in shock. Across every country, alerts spread faster than ever before. Radios, televisions, and mobile devices carried the same message: Earth is under attack. Prepare. Stand united. Governments activated emergency systems, and military bases came alive with noise and movement. In cities, sirens wailed as people rushed into underground shelters. In one city, a young nurse named Myra guided children into a safe zone inside the hospital. Her voice was calm, steady, and firm, even though her hands shook slightly. She looked up at the ceiling as dust shook loose from the alien ships rumbling overhead. Deep inside, she was afraid, but she also remembered something her father once said: bravery is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward even when fear is heavy. Those words gave her strength. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, Captain Ryan prepared his unit of soldiers. His men and women stood ready, watching the skies where the alien craft began to descend. Ryan had seen war before, but never like this. The enemy was unknown, their weapons far beyond anything Earth had faced. Yet he knew that every soldier beside him would give everything to defend their people. He gave a simple order: we hold the line. No matter what comes. The aliens believed this world would be an easy conquest. They thought humans would panic and scatter. But what they saw from above was different. From space, they could observe roads filling with vehicles, not running away, but moving supplies to strategic points. They saw humans creating barricades, forming groups, and taking up positions. Civilians, who had no weapons, still carried food, water, and medical kits to help those who would fight. It was not disorder. It was a kind of order the aliens did not understand. As the first alien drop pod slammed into the ground, dust and fire rose into the air. Alien soldiers stepped out, their armor shining and their weapons humming with strange energy. They moved like shadows, silent and precise. Their plan was to secure areas quickly, establish control, and remove resistance. But the first thing they met was not silence. It was fire. Earth's defense forces struck back. Fighter jets screamed through the sky, targeting alien carriers. Anti-air missiles launched in a wave of light, chasing ships that tried to land. On the ground, soldiers fired with everything they had. The aliens were shocked. In their training, enemies usually collapsed after the first strike. But humans were not collapsing. They were rising. In the streets, even ordinary people found ways to fight. In a small town, a group of farmers blocked a road with their tractors and heavy equipment, slowing down alien scouts. In another city, engineers used hack signals to confuse alien drones, making them crash into buildings. Students in a university turned their campus into a communication hub, spreading information faster than the aliens could disrupt it. Humanity was not waiting to be saved. Humanity was saving itself. Commander Roll watched from above, narrowing his eyes. He had seen resistance before, but never so widespread, never so fast. Every human seemed to be part of the defense. It was strange, almost chaotic, but somehow effective. Still, Roll convinced himself that it was only a delay. They are burning their strength too early, he muttered. Once their lines break, they will be ours. But on Earth, the humans were not thinking of lines breaking. They were thinking of survival. And survival was something they understood better than anyone. In the hospital, Myra continued to guide families underground, even as the walls shook. In the base, Captain Ryan's unit exchanged fire with alien soldiers, refusing to give ground. In the town, the farmers stood firm, knowing their tractors were no match for alien weapons, but also knowing they had to hold long enough for others to escape. The first contact between humans and aliens was not what the invaders expected. They had trained for 100 years to fight perfect wars against predictable enemies. But in just minutes, they realized Earth was not predictable. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was something else entirely, something they had never faced before. The invasion had only just begun, but already the aliens could feel it. Earth was not going to be an easy prize. Earth was going to fight back with everything it had. The battlefield stretched across the sky and ground alike. The alien ships continued their descent in waves, darkening the horizon with their sheer numbers. Their technology was sleek, efficient, and designed for one purpose: swift domination. They believed Earth would fold before them, yet every passing minute proved them wrong. Commander Roll stood inside his flagship, his sharp eyes fixed on the reports streaming across the screens. Alien squads had landed in several major cities, but none had established control. Instead of silence and surrender, they faced constant resistance. Streets that should have been easy to secure had turned into traps. Skies that should have been clear were filled with human fighter jets darting like swift insects, striking at weak points. It was not what Roll expected. On the ground, Captain Ryan and his unit held their position near the edge of a city. Alien soldiers advanced with perfect formation, their energy weapons glowing in the night. Every step they took was measured, every movement rehearsed. Yet the humans met them with something different: adaptability. Ryan's unit shifted positions quickly, firing from new angles, moving through alleys, and using the environment to their advantage. The aliens had trained for clean, open battles. They had not trained for broken streets, collapsing buildings, or sudden ambushes. When one of their armored squads marched down a narrow street, humans struck from rooftops with grenades and sniper rifles. When they tried to secure a bridge, civilians used trucks to block the path and soldiers detonated charges that forced the aliens into confusion. High above, alien drones attempted to map the city, but humans quickly learned to disrupt their signals. Students, hackers, and engineers across the globe linked together, sending false data, scrambling maps, and forcing drones to crash. The aliens began to realize that this was not one army against another. This was an entire planet working together. In the hospital shelter, Myra listened to the rumble of distant battles. Families huddled close as explosions echoed outside. Though she was not holding a weapon, she still played her part. She treated the injured who were brought in, offering comfort and courage where fear was heavy. One child looked up at her and asked, "Will they win?" Myra smiled softly and answered, "Not as long as we keep standing." Those words gave the frightened people strength to hold on. Elsewhere, Aaron, the young boy from the small town, watched as his grandfather joined other villagers. They were not soldiers, but they worked with determination. They built barricades, guided neighbors to safety, and shared what little supplies they had. Aaron's eyes widened as he realized that everyone, young or old, had a role in this fight. The aliens, however, could not understand this unity. To them, war was only the work of soldiers. Civilians were to be ignored or controlled later. But on Earth, everyone fought in their own way. A farmer with his tractor blocking a road was as important as a soldier with a rifle. A student jamming signals was as powerful as a pilot in a jet. This was a kind of warfare the aliens had never trained for. Back in orbit, Commander Roll clenched his fists. His commanders sent reports of unexpected resistance. Every time they thought they had secured an area, humans countered with new tactics. No battle followed the rules he had studied for a century. They are wasting themselves, he muttered, trying to convince himself. No species can hold against us for long. Yet deep inside, a small doubt had begun to grow. The clash of worlds grew fiercer with each hour. Alien weapons blasted through walls, sending shock waves across streets. Human defenses bent but did not break. When one unit fell, another rose to take its place. When a defense line was destroyed, survivors regrouped and struck again. The aliens had trained to fight perfect enemies who followed patterns. But humans fought with something else: creativity and chaos. Captain Ryan's unit, though outnumbered, held their ground. His soldiers used signals to lure alien squads into dead ends, where traps waited. They moved like shadows through the ruins, striking and disappearing. Every time the aliens tried to adapt, humans changed their plan again. Ryan shouted over the comms, "They expect order. Give them confusion." His soldiers obeyed with fierce determination. From the skies, alien commanders watched the chaos below and struggled to find sense in it. To them, humans looked uncoordinated, but the results spoke differently. Their disciplined squads were falling, their drones were crashing, and their landings were delayed. This was not disorder. This was survival in its purest form. For the aliens, war was about control. For humans, war was about refusing to bow, no matter the odds. This difference was becoming clear with every strike, every stand, every act of courage. As night fell, the fires of battle lit up cities around the world. The invasion was far from over, but one truth had already formed in the minds of the invaders. Earth was not weak. Humanity was not unprepared. The clash of worlds had begun, and the outcome was no longer certain. The invasion had entered its next stage. Alien ships hovered over cities like dark clouds, their lights flashing with cold precision. Soldiers in shining armor marched in straight lines, moving with the discipline of 100 years of training. To them, every step was calculated, every strike was designed to crush resistance quickly. Yet, on Earth, things did not follow their rules. Humans fought differently. They did not stay where the enemy expected them. They did not follow a single plan. Instead, they changed again and again, adapting faster than the aliens could adjust. This was the beginning of humanity's advantage. Commander Roll studied the battlefield from orbit. He saw humans retreat one moment and return with a counterattack the next. They set traps, created diversions, and then disappeared into shadows. To Roll, it looked like disorder. But when he studied the results, he saw alien squads being defeated again and again. His officers spoke in confusion. "They do not fight properly," one said. Roll replied, "They do not fight as soldiers. They fight as survivors." On the ground, Captain Ryan led his soldiers through the ruins of the city. Alien troops moved in perfect squares, scanning every corner. Ryan gave quick orders. His unit split into small groups, attacking from unexpected angles. When the aliens turned to fire, the humans had already moved. They used tunnels, rooftops, and destroyed vehicles as cover. To the aliens, it was frustrating. They were trained to win against order, not against unpredictability. In the hospital shelter, Myra continued her duty. The injured arrived constantly, some carried by soldiers, some by ordinary people who refused to leave others behind. Myra worked without rest, treating wounds, calming children, and giving courage to those who were afraid. She was not fighting with weapons, but she was fighting in her own way. Her strength helped others keep their hope alive. That hope spread like fire, and hope itself became a weapon stronger than many guns. In the small town, Aaron watched his grandfather and neighbors build clever defenses. They used farm tools, old machines, and even fuel from tractors to create barriers. They placed sharp objects across roads to slow alien vehicles. At night, they set fires in fields to confuse alien sensors. None of it was advanced technology, but it worked. Aaron realized that humans did not need perfect weapons to resist. They only needed determination and cleverness. Everywhere on Earth, similar scenes played out. Hackers sent false signals to alien drones. Engineers rewired old satellites to broadcast commands. Teachers and students turned schools into supply centers. Every group found its role. Humanity was showing that war was not just fought by soldiers. It was fought by everyone. The aliens were not ready for this. For 100 years, they had trained for battles where both sides followed strict patterns. Their simulations prepared them for predictable enemies. But here, nothing was predictable. A bridge that looked safe suddenly collapsed under hidden explosives. A street that seemed empty became alive with fire from rooftops. Even children helped by carrying water, food, and messages between fighters. Commander Roll grew restless. He ordered his soldiers to tighten formation and move with greater force. But the tighter they moved, the easier it became for humans to find weak points. Roll realized that no training could have prepared them for this. His people had never faced an enemy who used chaos as a weapon. On the front lines, Captain Ryan's unit continued to show this advantage. When one of his soldiers suggested a risky ambush, Ryan approved immediately. "If it is unexpected, it will work," he said. They carried out the plan, striking an alien squad that was trying to set up a control tower. Within minutes, the alien tower fell, their communications scrambled. Myra also saw the strength of humanity's spirit. A man with an injured leg refused to rest until others were treated first. A young woman who had lost her family still brought water to the shelter to help others. Myra thought to herself, "This is why we cannot fall. This is why we endure." As the hours passed, the aliens began to feel frustration. They had believed Earth would surrender in one day, but now they were stuck in battles that dragged on with no clear victory. They had power, but humans had something else: the ability to keep fighting no matter how strong the enemy seemed. Above the planet, Roll stood silent. He had never doubted his training, but now he began to see cracks in his certainty. These humans, though divided in culture and language, were united in resistance. Their creativity, their unity, and their stubborn willpower were turning into the greatest weapons he had ever faced. The human advantage was not numbers. It was not technology. It was the spirit to adapt, survive, and strike back when least expected. And that spirit was spreading across the world like wildfire. The clash was no longer between trained soldiers and weak civilians. It was between rigid training and living creativity. It was between order and unpredictability. And already, the scales of battle were beginning to tilt. The aliens had prepared for 100 years. But Earth had been preparing for survival for thousands. The sky above Earth was filled with streaks of light as alien ships fired their weapons across cities. Their energy beams cut through the air with deadly precision, and their armored soldiers advanced with confidence. Yet the humans were no longer on the defensive. In every corner of the world, people had found ways to fight back, turning the invasion into a contest of determination and wit. Captain Ryan moved quickly through the streets with his soldiers. The aliens had expected fear, confusion, and surrender, but what they faced instead was human resolve. Civilians, soldiers, engineers, and volunteers worked together seamlessly. Ryan gave orders to split his unit into smaller teams, each targeting a different alien squad. "Hit fast, hit smart, and move before they react," he said. His soldiers obeyed without hesitation, their actions precise, yet unpredictable. Meanwhile, Myra and her group in the hospital continued their work. They were not fighting with guns, but with life-saving care. Injured civilians, soldiers, and even some alien victims were treated quickly, and the morale of humans grew stronger with each successful effort. The hospital became a hub of hope, a symbol that humans could endure anything. In the countryside, Aaron and his grandfather organized villagers to protect their homes. They set up obstacles, used natural terrain for cover, and placed warning signals to alert approaching humans and soldiers. Their small actions caused confusion among alien squads. Rigid formations fell into traps, and soldiers trained for perfection were forced to retreat or rethink their plans. Engineers in cities hacked alien communications and sent false signals. Drones that were supposed to monitor human movement crashed or attacked each other. Every time the aliens thought they had control, humans found a new way to disrupt them. Schools, factories, and even homes became strategic points in the defense. Human creativity turned every ordinary object into a tool for survival. The aliens, trained for 100 years in strategy and combat, were beginning to realize their mistake. Commander Roll watched the reports from orbit. Every attempt to secure key positions ended in failure. The humans were not fighting like a single army. They were fighting as a species united by purpose, striking when least expected. How can they resist with so little? One officer asked. Roll did not answer. He already knew that resistance was not about weapons alone. On the front lines, Captain Ryan's soldiers cornered an alien squad trying to set up a command post. Using speed and unpredictability, they struck from different directions at once. The aliens tried to regroup, but human ambushes and distractions kept them off balance. Within minutes, the command post was destroyed, and the squad retreated in confusion. Ryan allowed his soldiers a brief moment to breathe, then continued their advance. High above the battlefield, alien drones scouted cities for human movements, but humans had learned to manipulate their systems. Lights in the streets were used to confuse sensors. Smoke from controlled fires masked real troop movements. Even the sounds of battle were redirected using loudspeakers and recordings. Humans were no longer predictable, they were clever, adaptive, and relentless. In one city, a group of students used a combination of technology and improvised tools to jam alien signals. They worked through the night, sharing knowledge and teaching each other new tricks. When the aliens sent reinforcements, the students had already scrambled their communications. The result was chaos for the invaders. Every alien drone that fell, every squad that retreated, became proof that Earth would not surrender. Even civilians without weapons played a role. Women and men guided children and the elderly to safe zones, carried supplies, and passed messages between units. Every small act of courage made a difference, and every act contributed to the growing advantage humans were gaining. What the aliens had underestimated was not strength or numbers, but human spirit. Commander Roll realized that the situation was changing. His fleet was no longer advancing smoothly. Humans were now dictating the pace of the battle. Each failed assault cost the aliens time and energy. He called his officers to the command chamber. "We must adjust," he said. "These humans are unlike anything we have trained for." His officers nodded in silence, knowing the truth of his words. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, Earth's people continued their efforts. Soldiers, civilians, engineers, and leaders had turned fear into strength, panic into strategy, and resistance into action. The tide of battle was shifting. For the first time, aliens had to retreat, regroup, and reconsider their plans. Humanity had turned the invasion into a fight on its own terms. The world was still under threat, but one fact had become clear: the aliens could no longer rely on their century of training. Humanity's unpredictability, courage, and unity were proving stronger than rigid preparation. The invasion that was supposed to be quick and decisive was now a test for the aliens themselves. On the ground, Captain Ryan smiled as he watched his soldiers hold positions they once thought impossible. Myra gave a reassuring hand to a frightened child in the hospital. Aaron and his grandfather looked at the barriers they had built and nodded in quiet pride. Across the world, People knew that this was only the beginning, but they also knew one thing: Earth would not give up without a fight. The turning tide was not only a victory of strategy. It was a victory of heart, determination, and the human spirit that refused to bow. The alien invasion, once a display of perfect training and overwhelming power, was beginning to unravel. Their ships, which had seemed unstoppable in orbit, now moved cautiously, scanning for threats that appeared from every direction. On the ground, soldiers trained for 100 years were being forced into retreat. Earth had proven far more resilient than they had imagined. Commander Roll stared at the battlefield reports in disbelief. Entire squads had vanished, communication towers had been destroyed, and drones that were supposed to give an advantage were now falling from the sky. Every plan he had perfected in simulations was failing in real time. He realized that humans were not just resisting, they were dictating the battle. His officers exchanged worried glances. "They are not like any enemy we have faced," one whispered. Roll did not answer. He already knew the truth. On the ground, Captain Ryan and his unit advanced carefully through the city streets. Alien soldiers were scattered and confused, their once perfect formations broken by traps, ambushes, and human ingenuity. Ryan's soldiers used every available tool, striking quickly and retreating before the enemy could recover. Small victories added up, and the humans began to feel the first real taste of hope. In hospitals and shelters, Myra continued her work. The injured and frightened arrived in greater numbers, but she never hesitated. She treated everyone with care and taught others to do the same. Her calm presence reminded people that survival was possible. Even when explosions shook the walls, she remained focused, guiding humans to stay strong and united. In the countryside, Aaron and his grandfather watched alien patrols stumble over traps they had set. Vehicles sank into hidden pits, soldiers were delayed by barricades, and drones were blinded by smoke. What had started as fear turned into courage. Aaron's eyes shone with determination as he realized that even ordinary people could change the course of the invasion. Throughout the cities, engineers and students continued their work. Signals were jammed, drones redirected, and communications disrupted. Alien weapons, which relied on precision, failed again and again. Humans had learned to fight not with brute strength alone, but with cleverness, adaptation, and teamwork. Each small success demoralized the aliens further, forcing them to question their assumptions. The collapse became more visible when alien squads tried to regroup in central areas. Humans struck with coordinated precision from unexpected angles. Soldiers who had trained to face predictable enemies were forced to improvise in unfamiliar territory. Drones crashed into buildings or were redirected to hit other alien units. Even supplies intended for the front lines were intercepted. The carefully crafted invasion began to crumble under pressure. Commander Roll felt a cold fear for the first time. He had believed in his soldiers, his training, and his strategy. Yet nothing seemed to work. The humans, disorganized at first glance, were united in ways the aliens could not understand. Every failure cost the aliens energy, equipment, and morale. The collapse was spreading, faster than Roll could control. On the front lines, Captain Ryan's soldiers had cornered a squad of elite alien troops. What should have been an easy battle became a desperate struggle for the invaders. Ryan's unit worked together seamlessly, using the terrain, teamwork, and clever traps. Within moments, the elite squad was either captured or forced to retreat. Even highly trained soldiers had no answers for this kind of resistance. Meanwhile, Myra observed the flow of injured soldiers arriving in her shelter. Humans were not only surviving, they were pushing forward. Children who had been afraid earlier now helped guide others. Civilians who had no weapons were supplying food, water, and medicine. Every contribution mattered. Humanity was proving that survival and resistance were not limited to battlefields alone. Even the alien commanders were losing control. Messages went unanswered, reinforcements were delayed, and soldiers were retreating in confusion. Their century of preparation could not withstand the combination of human spirit, adaptability, and unity. Every plan that had worked against other species failed against Earth. By the end of the day, the alien fleet was in chaos. Ships that had hovered with confidence were now forced to retreat or risk total destruction. Squads on the ground were scattered, equipment lost, and morale shattered. The once mighty invasion had lasted barely 30 minutes before it turned into a retreat. Across Earth, people celebrated quietly, knowing that the battle was far from over, but that victory had been achieved in this first stage. Captain Ryan's soldiers stood tall in the streets, Myra guided the wounded with calm determination, and Aaron and his grandfather smiled at the small victories their town had achieved. Humanity had shown that even against a perfectly trained enemy, courage, unity, and creativity could change the outcome. Commander Rull, now watching the retreating fleet, realized the truth that would stay with him forever. No amount of training, no amount of preparation, could replace the unpredictable, unyielding spirit of humanity. Earth had survived. Humanity had triumphed. And the invaders would never underestimate them again. The morning sun rose over a planet scarred but alive. Cities were damaged, streets were filled with debris, and the smoke from battles still lingered in the air. Yet across the globe, humans moved with determination. They had faced an enemy that had trained for 100 years to conquer them, and they had survived. For the first time, Earth breathed freely. Captain Ryan walked through the streets with his soldiers. His unit had held their positions, repelled alien squads, and helped civilians reach safety. Though exhausted, their faces shone with pride. Every building they passed, every corner they cleared, told a story of courage and resistance. Ryan paused to look at the rising sun. He thought of all the people who had fought in their own way, and he knew that humanity's victory was not just about weapons or strategy. It was about heart, spirit, and unity. Myra continued her work in the hospital, though now the flow of injured had slowed. She treated those who were recovering, helped rebuild the facility, and guided volunteers in organizing supplies. The patients, children, and elderly watched her, inspired by her calm determination. She had shown them that survival was not about fear, but about courage and care. Every life she saved was a small victory, a reminder that humans refused to bow even when the world shook around them. In towns and villages, ordinary people were heroes. Aaron and his grandfather stood among their neighbors, looking at the makeshift barricades they had built. Their small acts of resistance had delayed alien patrols, protected families, and helped the global effort. Aaron realized that victory did not only belong to soldiers. It belonged to every human who had chosen to stand and fight, to protect, and to help. Commander Rull watched the retreating fleet from orbit. His eyes, once filled with confidence, now reflected disbelief. They had trained for generations to dominate, yet Earth had resisted in ways that no simulation had predicted. He realized that humans were not like other species they had conquered. Humans had something unique, a spirit that could not be crushed, a unity that could not be broken, and a courage that no weapon could destroy. As the aliens withdrew, humans began to rebuild. Streets were cleared, communications restored, and emergency systems organized. Soldiers and civilians worked side by side, helping one another, sharing food, and treating the wounded. Across the world, the message was clear: Earth had survived, and humanity had won. Ryan's soldiers gathered in a city square. They stood together, not just as a unit, but as representatives of all people who had resisted. He spoke to them simply, yet with power. We have faced something that seemed impossible. We have shown that no force, no matter how strong, can break the spirit of humanity. Remember this. We are stronger than we think. United, we are unstoppable. His words echoed in the hearts of everyone present, reminding them that courage had no limits. Myra stepped outside the hospital, helping a child carry water. She looked at the people around her, volunteers, soldiers, and civilians who had endured the night of fear together. She smiled quietly, knowing that every act of help, every moment of care, had contributed to their victory. Humanity had won not because of one person, but because of all who stood together. In space, Roll transmitted a message to the remnants of his fleet. Earth is not to be underestimated, he said. Humanity has shown a strength we cannot match. Withdraw and regroup. Remember this lesson. For the first time, the aliens understood that training and technology alone were not enough. Earth was defended by a force beyond calculation, the human spirit. Across the planet, people looked at the sky with new pride. They had survived an enemy that believed themselves unstoppable. Cities began to repair, and communities grew closer, strengthened by the shared experience. They had learned that unity, courage, and determination were more powerful than any weapon. Humans had survived not by chance, but by choice. As night fell, the stars shone brightly over Earth once again. The battle had ended, and humanity had sent a clear message to the universe: humans may fight among themselves, they may disagree and argue, but when faced with a true threat, they rise together. They are unpredictable, resourceful, and unbreakable. Captain Ryan, Myra, Aaron, and millions of others looked at the stars with hope and pride. They had survived one of the greatest challenges imaginable. Humanity had not only defended Earth but had also shown that their spirit could not be conquered. The aliens had trained for 100 years to invade, yet they had survived only 30 minutes. Humanity had turned fear into courage, chaos into strategy, and resistance into victory. Earth was safe, at least for now. But more importantly, humans had proven something eternal. They had sent a message to the galaxy: humanity is strong. Humanity is united. Humanity is not to be underestimated. And with that, the planet slowly healed, carrying its people forward with courage, pride, and the knowledge that together, they could face any challenge that came from the stars.